I brought her.
It's recording now.
Okay. All right, there you go.
The first house down there was John L. Lewis. The second house, just before you drop off into the bottom, and it had a well in the backyard for water. That's where Dickie Thomas lived. And I'm not sure on these, but I think that Dickie Thomas' wife was Annie Lou Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
And then you come on up this side of the road. You had Gladys Thomas and all of our children. Two of them I know are still living in Fort Valley. If you know Sandra Goodman, and Darrell Thomas. Darrell worked for the post office now.
Oh.
He was a twin, but Red has passed, Iona has passed, Howard has passed. He went in the military.
Is that all one family?
Yep.
Okay.
Howard has passed. Howard. Harold has passed.
Can I let Lily in?
Yeah, close the kitchen door though, so she doesn't come back here. She's probably out there crying. That was Gladys's family,
Mm-hmm.
and Annie Lou lived with them. That would have been her mother, Gladys Thomas. And then you came on up the road right here. There was one more house on this side of the road which belonged to June Booz.
Oh, Booze. You know that name? June Booze?
I'll name some people you probably know.
Mm-hmm.
June Booz was, his first wife was killed on beyond Ed's house. There was a cotton patch up there and everybody was picking cotton, and she looked off, or they looked off to the west and saw the dark clouds coming, and everybody left the field except his first wife. And she did not show up after the storm had passed through, and they called to all the houses. They were close enough that you could call, you know, and see where she was. They found her in the field. Lightning had hit her in the head and exited her big toe. Killed her in the field. She wanted to finish where she was.
Oh my goodness.
But coming on up this way, what's some other people living from me? Gladys had a sister named Punk, and he was worked here for a long time, and he ended up homeless on the streets of Miami, so I've been told. But he made one time out of baling wire that you used to wrap bales of hay with to tie them together. He made a copy of a tractor out of baling wire, and I remember it was so good. I wish I had it still.
Wow.
Yeah,
He was
talented.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember he said, when he gave it to me, he said, "Now you give me $1." But that was Gladys's brother, I believe. There was a man named Squirrel, and I think his other name was Scrub, but I believe he belonged to the Lewis family. He was a big, tall, lanky guy. But anyway, back to June's family. His second wife was named Sweetie, and she was a really nice lady, really a nice person. June was the one that would come up here and
So June's a guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he would come up here.
Well, I'm used to it being a girl's name. So.
Yeah, his wife was Sweetie.
Yeah.
That's all I've ever known her as, Sweetie. Let's see, she had Hazel, who lived over on the Hancock farm. What's Kathy's last name that delivers, do you remember?
Kathy delivers what?
Drugs for CVS,
Oh.
for, you say?
I'm not Kathy. She's Oglesby.
Hmm?
But I don't know what her maiden name.
Oglesby?
I don't know what her maiden name is, but she's Oglesby now. You saved it?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know her.
that's Kathy, she would be Jim's granddaughter, would that be right? Hazel's daughter.
Yeah.
There was Hazel, there was Barbara. She worked at Sharps downtown for a while. There was Anderson. Anderson's passed. I used to play with Anderson all over this farm.
Is he about your age? Was he about your age, Anderson?
Possibly my age.
Okay.
I think Mildred was the youngest daughter. That sounds right to
I
me.
have to ask Dad because he wouldn't know all of them. My
But
dad.
Jim eventually moved out of that house over on Bible Camp. Is where he moved to.
Okay. Now, my granddad had a house over there. Our Booze.
Ira, oh, I loved Ira.
Oh, you knew
The
him?
He was married to
nicest
my
person
grandmother.
in the world.
I call him MacGyver.
Yeah. We used to go up there, drive Daddy up there and we'd just stop and talk to Ira, cause he was such a nice person.
Hmm.
So he was married to my grandmother, Ella Booze.
Oh.
I call her Nene.
Yeah, I always felt it's sad to me that after that property was sold, that she had to move out of it, and I think she died within a year of when she left that house. But anyway, all of that's gone up there.
Yes, it is.
Okay, that takes care of June's family. He was the one that would come up here and milk the milk cow under a low shelter that used to be right out here where that tractor shelter is. And he was the one that, you know, when they needed something to be done, he was the one they would call on. And this was the smokehouse behind us.
Mhm.
That on the far end was the ironing room where they heated those steel irons. There's one on the porch out here. And they ironed clothes out there. And the center of it was a double wall where they kept syrup. They ground their own cane and made their own boil their own syrup here on the farm. The pot they boiled it in is out there across the road. They kept syrup and lard in there. And then on this end was where everybody on the farm, when they had hog killing, everybody would bring the hogs up here and slaughter them and then bring them up here and prepare them in the yard, and they would salt the meat and keep it in this end. And then they would get it out for the next year. That was what they had for meat. But, okay, that takes care of June on that side. Then starting on the other side where our property line starts, there was Charlie Willie, Rump, and Nelsie. And I'm trying to think of Charlie Willie's kids. Johnny Boy was one of her children, one of their children. Johnny Boy, I think, was schizophrenic.
Was Johnny Boy the one who died on the tractor?
The pictures or just
Everything.
If
you can.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Johnny Boy
Everything.
had mental problems. I think he was schizophrenic, and they still had the place over there in Milledgeville. And he was sent over there, and I think they actually did a lobotomy on it,
Oh, wow.
which they don't do
Is
that
that too
anymore.
much to ask?
I
You're
wonder if the
priceless.
children was Nelsie.
Good job.
Nelsie.
you have to have somebody that lives around here. She had several more children. I remember Johnny Boy, and she had a couple of girls and boys, I think. Then you come back up this way to the top of the hill. When you go down the bottom, there's a hill back up on the top. There's a cedar tree and stuff up there. That's where David Rump and Bertha May Rump lived.
Wow.
You ever hear Bertha May? She's the one that took in Greg Lloyd when he was dropped off here.
Oh, okay, okay. I do. I don't. I mean, not by name, but now that you mentioned, because they moved over by the funeral home.
She lived, was it Chestnut? On the corner
Preston.
there. Tukey and Steve still
Preston.
live in the house that Bertha May had.
Okay.
And we see Tukey real regular. Her given name's, I believe, Eileen.
Okay, I do.
But David Rump and Bertha May, and their oldest child, who would the oldest be? Henry May. And Henry May came back for David Rump Jr.'s funeral a couple of weeks ago.
Mm.
It's the first time I've seen her. She moved to Connecticut, I think, and taught school up there, and then moved to North Carolina or South Carolina. And she's probably pushing 90 now.
Oh, wow.
There was Henry May and Tukey and Nathaniel. You might know the Nathaniel Rump. He's retired from the post office. I've got a picture of him sitting on a W6 tractor, and his nickname was Dink.
Dink?
And like everybody had a nickname.
Everybody had a nickname.
And Steve was the youngest of Bertha May's children. And he still lives in Fort Valley in the house with Tukey. And Tukey has a lot of health problems now. Then the last house, and I don't know where Waxy, somebody would have to tell me. I don't know where Waxy fits in it, but Waxy lived in a house behind this little open field, and I don't really even know her last name. She was an old lady when I was a kid out here playing. And she was named Waxy because her skin was sort of a yellow color. And everybody called her, that's all I ever heard her called was you Waxy.
Really?
That takes care of them on the families on this farm.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you, because my grandfather, his name was Columbus Vinson, but he married Alice Stembridge. So do you know that name, the Stembridges around here?
No.
Oh, because I was wondering where would he have met her, if she was here. Or...
Hello.
This is my son Ed.
How are you, Ed? I'm Brenda.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, Ed.
And my husband Jerome.
How you doing, Chief?
April's my daughter, and Phyllis is my cousin. That I'm just learning about Phyllis, because we're doing a family reunion kind of thing. Hopefully in 2026.
Right.
2026.
July, yeah, we can. And so we're just kind of like scoping out places, and this is like many of our family was here, so we came to see this, the home of our family,
Right.
of our ancestors. So yeah.
No,
We're
you don't remember any of Charlie Willie's family, do you?
Mm-mm.
Charlie Willie and Nelsie?
I didn't.
I just remember Johnny Boy.
Yeah, I didn't. I was little bitty.
He was a little boy.
Yeah.
Charlie Willie had passed and moved
Like
on.
this.
by the
Yeah,
time
I think so.
Hmm.
Yeah, I was tiny. Then. I don't remember many.
What's Kathy's last name?
I
You
don't-
save it. She
Yeah, I
knows.
don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to ask Steph.
She doesn't know it. I know I've heard it, but I'm not calling it now.
Yeah, no. She and I have talked about everybody she's related to, but I can't remember what she
Yeah.
said. So,
So I'm going to show you. So this is my grandparents. So Alice and Alice in Columbus.
Mhm.
But she was a Stembridge, and him Vinson. We called him Papa Son.
Yeah,
We call her Mama Alice. And these are all her children. Their children are here, listed here. So I can't remember when they went to Ohio, but this is like, I was just born in 53, but they were celebrating their 60th wedding anniversary.
Mhm.
And it says but they were from Fort Valley, and I can't remember when she said they moved up here. I think it's in there. But my father was born in Fort Valley.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so these are all my aunts and uncles, my father's siblings.
Mhm.
She's the oldest. They're kind of like by age, the oldest. Do any of these people, know any of those names? And Uncle Pete, I don't know, but Uncle Pete is Lewis's father. You know Lewis,
Yeah.
the one
yeah,
that lives in
uh-huh.
Michigan, Detroit.
Yeah.
And so but Lewis told me he didn't know his father. He didn't know his grandfather. I forget who he told me he raised him. But I don't have a picture of him because Lewis is like the only contact I had.
Yeah.
Uncle George was really comical and funny, and he played with all the kids. And of course, all of them are passed. This is Ada, but I thought that was a pretty picture of her
Yeah.
when she was younger. I thought all my aunts were really pretty. To me, they were gorgeous. And then Lucy, we called her Aunt Sal, Aunt Mamie. So these would have been some of the children running around here.
Yeah.
And my very handsome Uncle Jerome, he was handsome to me until he passed. And then that's my dad, is Fred.
Yeah.
And then this was just a group picture of them, my mom. And then I think that might have been a Christmas picture and Mama Alice again, my dad, and then some of the grandchildren.
Got a baby.
I don't know, we can't figure out who that baby was. And then this was my father's brother.
Mm-hmm. That's an unusual name.
They called him P-Chain. That was like his nickname.
Yeah.
I didn't know his name was Rufus for a long time. And then this was one of his sisters who we called Aunt Jack.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they moved to Florida. And I don't really know much about, her or like my grandfather's siblings. And then this was the Stembridge family.
Yeah.
Richard and Lila Stembridge. And so that was my grandmother was part of that family.
Mm-hmm. That's very nice.
Yeah, so I kind of like take the book with me, and so this is when we came down, I think in June of '90, and we came here and took pictures, and there's your house. Is that right, Wallace Vinson? Charles Wallace Vinson? I didn't do
Charles
that.
Arthur.
Oh, Charles Arthur.
Yeah.
Boy, I was way off.
That wasn't Wallace Arthur.
Okay, and then this was a church. We went by the church there, which is now built up. They've renovated and added on to it, but it was a really little church then.
What was the church that they
Fairview.
Okay. Well, Fairview's still there now.
Yeah, it's still there, but this is when I came down 30 years ago or so. That's how it looked. Now it's brick and it's really nice. We went by there, and then
Greg Lloyd gave him a lot of money.
who gave money?
I think Greg Lloyd may have.
Whoever, thank goodness. And then we went to the cemetery, which is now, it's like
A lot
different.
different.
Yeah, it looked like a little forest when I saw it, but that was, some of the.
Yeah, that's Wesley Chapel.
So yeah, that is. And then it's just more pictures of like my family reunion.
Yeah, and that Wesley Chapel, I think, is the third church that was there. Of course, originally.
Is that name of this church was Wesley
Yes,
Chapel?
Wesley
See,
Chapel.
Yeah, I didn't get the sign in there.
Originally, the first church, and maybe even the second, that was when blacks and whites went to church together.
Mhm.
And you had a section where the blacks were and the whites.
Okay, and that was
Then
Wesley?
after the war, the black families wanted their own church, and that's when you started getting Fairview and Mount
Oh,
Pleasant.
okay, all right.
Wanted their own services.
Yeah, we had to do it our way. Oh, okay. So that's good. Well, thank you for sharing with us all those families and all.
But,
Let us come by and yeah.
Yeah, I was born in Atlanta, gray baby, but I never really sat down a lot and talked to my family about details, The only one told scouts is running around doing stuff with my buddies. But when you get older, you start looking back, you be saying, I wish I had asked grandma some more questions.
Yeah. You wish you had asked all your uncles and all those questions when they were younger.
Oh, yeah.
well, did you know Wincy Drain? She worked for the funeral home.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I know.
that's Wincy.
Mhm.
Yeah, she's a good friend.
Okay.
Let's see.
Her brother worked out here for years and years. And I
Yeah.
thought there was
Buddy boy?
yeah.
Yeah, he used to come by and, every Sunday and wake up the whole house. No, but if you knew Buddy boy, you knew that's what he was going to do.
Is that Maurice's mama?
I think so.
Okay. Yeah, I know Maurice pretty good.
Mm. So what do you farm here? Pecans and,
Just pecans.
oh, just
Just
pecans?
Yeah.
Okay. So you used to do cotton, pecans, and another something?
We had cows. We had soybeans, cotton. Grew some wheat.
Mm.
It was pretty well change or get out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So pretty much it's pecans now?
Is it easy to grow pecans? Is that why there's so many? Or is it no? Well, their face says no.
We
hard.
see them
This
with,
face said,
them on
really?
peach trees.
Yeah.
You know?
Why are there so many pecan trees in the peach state?
Well, how long ago was it? At some point we were trading with China and the price was really high. And when it got really high,
We started
everybody
growing up.
started planting.
Oh.
But it takes about 10 years to 15 years to start seeing a return. Well, by the time they started coming on, price started going down. And
So now it's just a bunch of pecan trees
Right.
everywhere.
Oh.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's pretty well a full-time job though.
Mm.
As soon as we get out of harvest, we take a week off and then come back and get in the pruning towels and start cleaning up the orchards, pruning limbs, shaping trees.
Oh, wow.
And you just don't stop anymore.
That's a lot of work.
You go from one thing to the next. And
Yeah.
now Ed's getting a little frantic, the rain and everything. He wants to
Yeah.
get the spray machines back
Too
out
much.
of the field.
Too much rain. Makes
we haven't mowed at all this year because it keeps raining.
Oh.
We can't do anything.
Mhm.
But there are all sorts of diseases that will grow on pecans if you don't keep them protected.
Didn't know that.
What do you use to protect it?
We spray different fungicides on
Okay.
them.
Okay.
A lot of them are what you call prophylactic though. You gotta have it out there so that when the spore lands on it, it can't infect.
Oh.
And if you don't have it on there or you've got fresh growth, it's exposed to the disease.
To all the bacteria in the air.
Yeah.
But the best thing coming along is University of Georgia is putting out varieties now that you don't have to spray. So that's helpful
Is it
with our
safe?
bottom line and
It's safer for the pecan.
yeah, and the general public.
Yeah.
So is that
I feel like feels better.
Is that where you
So
get your like seed from? Is the University
They,
of the State of Georgia?
the way they grow pecans is they plant usually a seedling
Mhm.
seed because they don't breed true. So you plant that, you grow it up, you take a graft wood, say off one of these small trees, and splice it into that wood, and then you're basically growing a piece of another wood to make this same variety tree. Because they don't, none of the nuts actually breed true to the variety.
Oh, okay.
So,
Alrighty.
What does that mean? Does it produce a different kind of nut?
a different kind of nut.
What?
I mean, it's a desirable, but it would not grow into a desirable tree.
But it's still a pecan. A
Right.
different kind of.
Right.
There's
That
different
may be
pecans.
junk.
Not the kind you can eat or use or sell or profit
It
off
could
of.
be junk, or it could be the great new discovery.
Oh.
You don't know what
Just
it
take a
is.
chance.
Okay.
Oh. Cool. Wow. So.
So fascinating because Dad talks about all of this, and Daddy will be 95 in June. And so to hear you say that, these are things I've heard him say. It's interesting.
Well, it's being polite, I blame Trump. He put a tariff on China, and they said, oh, thanks.
They found other outlets.
Yes, they did.
South Africa, Israel,
Yeah,
Mexico.
we don't have to buy from you.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's my political statement. But Buddy Boy, I thought, had Vinson's in his background
I
somewhere.
think so.
I'm pretty sure he did. But I know nobody ever told me
Buddy Boy.
what.
So did Buddy Boy have a real name? Not that you know of, huh?
I think I've been corrected on that. Bobby Wright told me his real name, his name is not Buddy Boy, it's Burr Boy.
Like that's better, right?
I don't know. That's all I've ever known.
Oh my. It's just kind of hard to look up people by Buddy Boy.
Right.
If they don't have a real name, it's, you know.
If you ever met Buddy Boy on the weekend, though, you would not forget him for the rest of your life.
Right.
Not.
So you know him though, right?
I knew him.
Oh, he
His
passed.
sister, yeah.
Okay.
I know his
Yeah.
sister,
Oh,
Mitzi.
oh,
She
it's-
lives not far from Daddy.
okay.
Oh, I forgot Z's. He was, I thought, not sure how Z's was related to Bertha May. I'm thinking he may have been half brother or brother to Bertha May.
Yeah, I don't know about
And where did Z's, what city, did he go
that.
to
He went to
Cincinnati?
Cincinnati.
Yeah,
He lived with a cousin, I think.
yeah.
I'm not.
He lived for a long time with
He
David.
did. And he seems like he passed when Eric was still around at that point.
Yeah, Eric Hudson.
Yeah.
But Z's was, boy, he did not like it because Z's was a little slow, and we would let David have his weekly wage, and David would give him so much, and then David would use that remainder money to buy meals and stuff like that, and clothes for Z's. And his relatives in Cincinnati didn't think that was right, and eventually he moved up there with them to Cincinnati, and I think he had diabetes,
Yep.
Mm.
and he had either lost a leg or an arm.
He lost a foot.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Z's would come back, and he'd have a gold tooth and earrings, and he would cry when they told him he had to go back to Cincinnati. He did not want to go back.
It's good hearing, you know, what they used to do.
That's some story.
Some, yeah, I like those stories. I like history. So,
He told me one time that when he was feeling better about Cincinnati, Z's told me, he said, you know, I like Cincinnati.
Wow.
I got me a quart of beer and a fat woman in Cincinnati.
Okay, that's life.
It was something else.
Doesn't take much to make him happy.
Well, I'm glad it was happy someday. But he grew up here on the farm, so it was
Mhm.
hard for him to move to a big city.
Oh, okay, yeah. That would be kind of a shocker sometimes.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So,
Any questions?
I can't think of any more. I was hoping there would be that Stimbridge connection, because I was wondering how my grandfather met my grandmother. You know, I thought, maybe he scurried down somewhere and y'all didn't know. So, but I was wondering if they might have been around in the area or something.
There's a Stimbridge family that I knew when I was back in high school,
Mm-hmm.
but
They didn't live close.
no, I didn't know the connection that there.
Now, did workers from your farm ever go to work at another farm? Or others come here to, you guys
No.
didn't trade or,
No, it was really a stable relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them had been here for a couple of generations at least.
Mm, okay,
I don't know when they first came here or where they came from,
okay.
but it was very stable. And of course, understandably, Daddy saw it coming, that the young men no longer stayed here. They would move north to work where they could make better wages and, quite frankly, get away from Jim Crow.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. I was just wondering, because someone was telling me, and I can't remember who, that back then, sometimes, like, I guess, like if you had, like, people in Florida, or you had a certain harvest in Florida, that some of the enslaved people would go there to work the farm during that season, and then they go back to their original place.
Yeah.
And that happened in many places, that you weren't always in one place, because sometimes if the harvest needed you here, you would go there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, it was a pretty stable thing at that time. I mean, and quite frankly, there was a sense of interdependence with the people that were here on the farm
Oh, okay.
and the farm owners. Now, that was not like that on a lot of places.
Mm-hmm.
And I know David Rump told me one time, he said, the Depression came and went, but we did all right all the way through the Depression. And I don't believe him, but he told me this.
Yeah.
He said, I came up here and got a shoulder. And just to show the neighbors men that we were so well off, he said he turned it over, skin down, and tied a string on it and drug it down the road in front of him.
Oh my
I don't
gosh.
believe that. He would have gotten a whipping.
Oh my goodness. Now, was somebody, Vinson, a doctor? One of
Yes.
you? Who was that?
He was the other Vinson family
Oh, that was
that lived beyond Wesley Chapel Church, going towards the Blue Hole. In that map, in those folders, it has a location of everything.
Okay. So there was another Vinson family. Was he related to you all? To your family?
I think if you go back far enough, they say no, but I think if you go far enough, I think into Washington County and before that, that there was a relationship. And my grandfather, great-grandfather Isaac, courted Henry Vinson's daughter, Sarah Vinson.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't want him.
Oh.
And he never was successful with it. And during the war between the states, or the Civil War, or War of Northern Aggression,
Whatever
whatever
you
you
call
want
it.
to call it, she was married to a McDonald. I believe he was a Dr. McDonald.
Mhm.
and he died during the war. And Isaac renewed his courtship of her,
Oh,
and things were really hard for everybody after that war,
mhm.
because you're talking about a whole economy that was devastated.
Yeah, I know.
He married her, and had 2 sons, and that was my grandfather and his brother, Robert Henry Vinson.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay.
Now, I have never found anything, and I'll tell y'all because you're interested in your heritage,
Mhm.
and like I am. Isaac supposedly had a black girlfriend before he was married.
Oh.
And so, I don't know, maybe that's a tie-in there, I don't know.
That's where Mama Ellis came from. Because she was very, very skinned. I mean, she looked white,
Mhm.
at least from what I remember. Because she passed, I was like 10, but she was old, but
Yeah.
she looked white. I mean, she definitely was not full. Would have been a
Well,
mulatto
the
or
only way
something like
that
that.
could be established now would be through genetic testing.
Yeah. Because she definitely.
But then, Robert Henry didn't have a good marriage either. Well, he didn't have a good marriage. Isaac was very happy with his marriage.
So, but their last names are Vinson,
Yes.
Henry Vinson,
Yeah.
Isaac Vinson. Okay.
Yeah, Robert Henry Vinson up here had a bad marriage, and he moved around a bit there.
Oh, okay.
So, that's another possible time.
Rolling Stone.
So, I don't know how you would ever establish it
Yeah, I
unless
don't know. Yeah.
somebody in Fort Valley knows.
So that farm was on the other side of town, or other side of, where did you say
No,
it was?
we had those folders, the
Oh,
map in
your
those
your
folders.
daughter-in-law
Oh,
is
they're
was
good.
using, but his name was,
We still have them out here.
oh, I didn't know there was another family of Vincent.
They are they're more polished than my family is. They were, I think in the legislature and stuff like that.
But from that family was,
Carl Vinson and
oh,
famous senator in Milledgeville, he was in that family,
yeah,
of that family.
yeah, they have a shipper thing named after Carl Vinson.
That's right.
Yeah, or maybe that's, no, our side, I don't know. Oh, okay,
Henry Vinson was one that.
but there was a Dr. Vincent on
Yeah,
that, okay.
and he, was well liked amongst the black community, so I've been told, because he treated his black patients well.
Hmm. Wow, I didn't know there was 2 sets of Vincent. So how did the road get to be named Vincent Road? Was that after your family? Or,
Well,
I mean, it's.
it was named Vinson Road because we've been here so long.
Okay.
You said maps in the front of this?
Yeah, let me see.
Hmm.
Is this the one I got out here? Yeah. This has the different locations of everything. This is where we are right here,
Okay.
and you go up this road past Vinson Dairy, which was, well, that now up the road up there. And then you go around this way. Isaac's house was before you get to Wesley Chapel Church. Right on the corner is Wesley Chapel. And then on down towards the Blue Hole is Henry Vinson's house. It's still there.
Oh, now, did you guys have any interactions with that Vincent family? Vincent family?
Not a whole lot. My Aunt Mary knew them.
Okay. So you don't know if they were related, well, maybe somewhere down the line they could have been related.
To you?
No, to you.
Oh, well, like I said, if you go back to the, 1700s, I forget,
They could have
somewhere in
been
there.
along the way.
Yeah,
Hmm.
but they came down, the furthest I've gone with it, and they'd have to have somebody professional do it, to go any further, and then they may correct even what I've done back that far. But I get them back to the Maryland, Delaware border, and that they had the Old Line Church or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then as this area of the country opened up, they moved down through South Carolina with the migration that came, and then ended up in Washington County, in the deep step part of Washington County.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, there were lotteries when this land was taken away from the Indians. The lotteries, and if you were a widow or an orphan or a revolutionary soldier, you got draws in the lottery,
Oh.
and then you sold the land to somebody and used that money. That was the intent. You use that money to support yourself, especially for widows and orphans,
Okay.
because there was no pension fund
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
back then.
Mm-hmm.
And Josiah, I think his brother had already been here for a while, one of his brothers. But Josiah bought this piece of property from an orphan that was, I believe her name was, I've got it somewhere in there, I believe the name was Catherine DeMott. And she was, the guardians of her were the one that sold the property and received the money.
Oh.
To take care of herself.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was no
Right.
no
You didn't have
fallback system
anything.
for anybody
Yeah.
back then.
Wow.
I've got a letter from them talking about that. And the reason I got that information that I do have that started me being interested in this was Robert Henry had one son, Millard Vinson, who had ran the dairy up here, and Millard divorced his first wife, and he did one of the things which was scandalous in those days. He and Ruby took off and went to Las Vegas and got the Vegas solution and got married at the same time.
Okay.
And that was a big scandal back then.
Yeah, I would imagine that would be.
But anyway, a little metal box I've got had papers in it, which Ruby had. That was Miller's wife, the Vegas wife. That's where the first, what do you call them? The ranches, horse riding ranches out there, what's the name of them, Ed? Not the actual name of the generic name. That's where they got started, when these rich people would go out there to Vegas to get a divorce, and they'd stay at one of these dude ranches. Dude ranches, they'd stay at them while the divorce was going through. You had to spend like a week or 3 days or something crazy like that.
Ed, you were just too little.
Nevada.
It's like, I was just a kid.
You had to stay there so many days, and so they'd stay at a dude ranch, and that's where dude ranches that we all love now
All the
got
dudes were.
started.
All the dudes.
But anyway, she had the box, and that had a lot of papers that got me started on trying to figure out who we were and where we came from, just like y'all are doing.
Yeah. Yes, it's interesting to find out, you know, where that little trail leads.
Yeah, there was still some bad blood when I came along, which I didn't know about all that then.
Yeah.
And I'll tell the story that we were invited to dinner at Ruby's after they had sold the farm up here. And I didn't think we were going, but I was told if I wanted the deeds and all the papers in that box, that I had to come to the dump. And Mother didn't care. Daddy, he sure was quiet that whole dinner that we went to.
Okay.
I didn't know what was going on.
And you weren't supposed to.
I think now.
Ooh.
But that's where I got all the papers
Information,
and
yeah.
deeds and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, that's good. So, I don't want to take up any more of your time, but thanks. It's been.
Ride you around if you want to, or do anything
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
yeah. I'll take a ride around.